the most common questions we hear from people transitioning to Medicare or simply considering a change in their coverage is which Medigap plan should I enroll in and which insurance company should I choose? It is an important decision and understandably it can feel overwhelming with so many different options available. My name is Cameron Giardini, and just like at our independent insurance agency, Giardini Medicare, in today's video, we will show you exactly how you can effectively narrow down your Medigap options. Our focus will be on guiding you to find the Medigap plan letter and the insurance company that fits what you're looking for. Now, if you are looking for a comparison between Medicare Advantage and Medigap plans, make sure you watch our Medigap versus Medicare Advantage video after this one. It's important to understand that there is not a one-size-fits-all answer to choosing Medigap coverage. We are not going to name a specific Medigap plan or insurance company that is right for everybody because frankly, it does not exist.
It would be nice.
Each of you watching this will have unique circumstances, and the right choice for you will not be the same as the right choice for someone else. However, we will still give you the steps and the advice that we have used to help thousands of people enroll in their Medigap coverage. So please do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you find it helpful. First, it is important to quickly determine whether or not you are eligible for the Medigap Plan F or Plan C. If you were first eligible for Medicare on or after January 1st, 2020, you're not eligible for either of these plan letters. If that is you, there is no need to pay attention to them moving forward.
Just ignore it.
However, if you were first eligible for Medicare before January 1st, 2020, you can still enroll in the Plan F or the Plan C, although, as you will see, we rarely recommend either of them. I know it can be overwhelming when you look at the standardized chart of Medigap plans in the Medicare and You Handbook, or even in the Choosing a Medigap Policy Handbook. But the first thing you will want to do when choosing a Medigap plan is deciding the Medigap plan letter that could be right for you. Remember, Medigap coverage, it is standardized by plan letter. This is done so that a Plan G with one company provides the same basic medical benefits as with another company. The plan letter you choose will ultimately determine what your Medigap plan does and does not financially cover, regardless of the insurance company that you choose. To simplify things, we recommend deciding between the Plan G, the Plan N, or the High-Deductible G, which is often referred to as the HDG. This will be much easier than looking at 10 different coverage options when really these three plans make up the bulk of new Medigap enrollments. Let's quickly break down why these are the most relevant plan options and who they might be right for. For Plan G, this is the Medigap plan that is seeing by far the highest number of enrollments in recent years. It is a popular choice for those who want a high level of medical coverage with no excess charges, and they're simply willing to pay more in premiums over time for comprehensive coverage. It is an especially good option if you expect to need medical treatment frequently. Now for Plan N, if you're looking for the balance between value and coverage, Plan N just might be the right fit. It is a good option if you don't visit the doctors too often and you are comfortable with the rare possibility of excess charges in exchange for saving on monthly premiums. The High-Deductible Plan G, on the other hand, is geared towards those who want the lowest possible monthly Medigap premium, as well as premium increases. And this is for those who are generally healthy and they plan on staying that way, at least for the near future. It's important to note that with the HDG, you need to be okay with variable and potentially higher out-of-pocket costs if and when medical needs arise. Generally, from the three, we tend to prefer the Plan N as a good mix of coverage and value, but the reality is that many of you watching this video will likely choose the Plan G, and that's perfectly fine. While the HDG is less popular, it is still a viable option for those who prefer that style of coverage. For more detailed comparisons, watch our video about Plan N versus Plan G, and you can also watch our deeper dive into the HDG by seeing the videos here on the screen. Just make sure to watch that after this one. Now, you could still be sitting there considering Plan F if you are in fact eligible for it. However, for most people, Plan F, it simply doesn't make financial sense anymore.
The math doesn't add up.
To illustrate this, let's look at a 65-year-old male in a completely random zip code, which in this case ended up being 16823. The lowest Plan G premium is $124 per month, not including the innovative plan that we will discuss later. While the lowest Plan F premium, on the other hand, is $146 per month. That is a difference of $264 per year. This is more than the Medicare Part B deductible, which is important since the only difference between Plan F and Plan G is that the Plan G does not cover the Part B deductible, while Plan F does. Although this premium difference between the Plan F and the Plan G might seem very small, that does not also factor in that typically the premium increases for Plan F will be higher than Plan G because the plan again is no longer offered to newly eligible Medicare beneficiaries. That said, Plan F, it might still be the right option for you, particularly if you have guaranteed issue rights, which may be even more common this year with some Medicare Advantage plans exiting certain counties. Moving on, one of the biggest adjustments you'll need to make when transitioning to Medigap coverage from individual health insurance that you purchase under age 65, or even health insurance from your employer, is you have to let go of the idea of provider networks. I know it is second nature to think about networks when it comes to choosing a health plan, but when it comes to Medigap coverage, that is something that you can completely remove from your thought process. Medigap plans, they are not PPOs or HMOs. Even better, with a Medigap plan, you can see any provider that accepts original Medicare as long as they are, of course, accepting new patients. This is a level of flexibility that many people find refreshing compared to the network restrictions they might be used to in the past. Here is how it works. With Medigap coverage, original Medicare remains your primary insurance when you receive medical treatment. In this case, your provider would then bill Medicare as your primary coverage first. Medicare then determines if the service is covered, they process their portion of the claim, and they also use a process called a crossover to send the remaining amount of the bill to your Medigap insurance company. Your Medigap plan then covers the portion it's responsible for, and it sends any remaining cost to you based on the plan letter you've chosen. This brings us to an important point. The Medigap company that you choose, it does not matter when it comes to which doctor or facilities you can use. Avoid making the mistake of calling your doctor's office and asking, do you accept XYZ company's Medigap plan? Here's why. The person that you speak with, they might confuse your Medigap coverage with a Medicare Advantage plan instead. This could lead to incorrect information about network status. They might tell you that they're not in network, or they could say they are in your plan's network. But either way, the answer is irrelevant, thanks to how Medigap coverage works. Instead, if you want to double check, the correct question to ask is, do you accept original Medicare? That's all that matters, because if they accept Medicare, they have to accept your Medigap plan, no matter the insurance company providing the coverage. You can also use Medicare.gov to double check if your provider accepts original Medicare if you would like. Now, there is a small exception worth mentioning, which are Medicare Select plans. These are specific types of Medigap plans with networks of hospitals and sometimes even doctors. However, most consumers do not enroll in these plans. We just want you to be aware that they do exist, but for this video, we are sticking to standard Medigap plans that offer the broader flexibility I just described. As we move forward in narrowing down your Medigap options, it is crucial to understand that most of you watching this video will not have the same Medigap choices as one another. First, the monthly premiums will vary drastically across the country, as you can see from these two different maps showing the monthly premiums a 65-year-old could roughly expect to pay for Medigap Plan N and Plan G in each state. But aside from the monthly premiums, there are two more key factors that set Medigap plans apart depending on the state you live in. This is how the plan premiums are rated and your ability to change Medigap coverage in the future. Let's start with how Medigap premiums are set. You may come across terms like community rated, issue age rated, and attained age rated when researching your options. These terms, they refer to the different ways that Medigap plans can increase their premiums over time. Although we won't dive into the technical details for each of them, it is important to note that issue age policies, they often sound the most appealing because even official Medicare sources say premiums are lower for people that buy at a younger age and they won't change as you get older. They still do mention that premium increases can happen due to inflation and other factors, but who wouldn't read this description and think, I want that one?
I want it.
Here's where it gets tricky. The availability of these 3 different plan ratings depend almost entirely on the state you live in. For example, if you're in Boise, Idaho, and you ask us about issue age plans, we would pretty much have to tell you that the plan is not available because Idaho now mandates that Medigap plans are community rated. In contrast, if you're in our home state of Michigan, you'll find that most plans are attained age rated. And while issue age plans do exist, they will likely have a much higher monthly premium. For example, the lowest premium issue age Plan N in this zip code in Michigan would be roughly $50 more per month than a competitive attained age Plan N. Also, the issue age plan can and still will have premium increases, as you can see based on the most recent increase that they filed with the state of Michigan. Now, if you're in a state like Florida, you're in luck because all Medigap plans there are issue age, although the premiums are higher than most places in the country. Again, your location plays a huge role in determining what kind of Medigap options are available to you. Now, the second factor to consider is how your state's rules might affect your ability to change Medigap plans in the future. This is especially important because many people see choosing a Medigap plan as a lifetime commitment, and in many cases, it is. Although you can technically change your Medigap coverage at any time, in most states, this will depend on whether you can qualify for a new Medigap plan based on your health and pre-existing conditions, which we do talk in more detail about in this video. Here on the screen, you'll see a list of states that have unique rules that allow you to choose Medigap plans without having to qualify based on your health. However, most of these states do not have the same rules regarding changing plans without health questions. For instance, in Washington, if you're enrolled in a Medigap Plan B through N, you can change to another Plan B through N at any time without passing health underwriting. Meanwhile, Oregon has a birthday rule that allows you to switch to a plan with equal or lesser benefits like Plan G to Plan G or Plan G to Plan N during a specific time period surrounding your birthday each year. These are just a couple of examples. To help you navigate this, we will link to a guide that outlines the different rules in each of these states. As we always recommend, make sure to get help from a broker who is licensed in your state and who is familiar with the unique Medigap regulations there. Remember, it costs nothing to work with an independent broker, so make sure you take advantage of the expertise available to you. As a quick bonus tip, remember that not all states follow the standardized Medigap plan letters that we have been discussing. States like Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Wisconsin have their own set of Medigap plans, so if you're in one of those states, your options will look different than what we've discussed. We have covered a lot of ground so far, but now we are at the final and perhaps most challenging step, narrowing down the specific insurance company you'll choose to provide your Medigap coverage. This part can feel a bit overwhelming, and here's why. You could do all the research in the world, and still you will likely not end up with the perfect option. With 30 to 40 Medigap plans available in many markets, and with new ones popping up regularly, predicting which company will be the most cost-effective over your lifetime is, well, impossible. But don't worry, while there's no foolproof method, there are steps that you can take to stack the odds in your favor. Here is how we recommend narrowing down your options to find the right Medigap insurance company for you, again, based on our experience helping thousands of clients enroll in Medigap coverage. Just know, like always, these are simply our opinions, and you can certainly pick and choose what to listen to and what to disregard. We will discuss these different tips and then we will put them to the test at the end of the video to show how we would decide a plan recommendation in a couple of test examples. Just know that while some of these different criteria can be easy to find on your own, Others are much more difficult to find, so if you need help connecting with a broker, just use the link in the description below. The first step is to run a quote. You can do this on your own using Medicare.gov, but independent brokers also have access to additional quoting tools. During this step, make sure to mention or take into account whether you might qualify for a roommate or a spouse discount. These vary from company to company, so it is important to confirm the specific criteria. For instance, a spouse discount might apply if both you and your spouse are applying for Medigap coverage with the same insurance company, while a roommate discount might apply if you simply live with your spouse or someone age 18 or older, even if they are not applying for the same Medigap coverage. Just know these discounts, they can range from about 7 to 12%, so they are important to remember. Next, narrow down your options to companies within roughly $10 to $15 per month of the lowest quote. The only real difference between these plans will be the monthly premiums, unless certain companies offer different things like fitness memberships or dental and vision options, which do typically come with an added premium. If those add-ons don't appeal to you, then again, price becomes the main factor. However, at our agency, we don't simply recommend the lowest priced Medigap plan right off the bat. Instead, we consider factors that could impact potential premium increases over time before making a recommendation. While saving a few dollars on monthly premiums up front might seem the most important, the amount you pay over time will end up being even more crucial. That said, if you simply want the cheapest plan and you don't care, go for it. It might just end up being the right choice for you. Remember that the $10 to $15 range, it is not a hard and fast rule. If a company you prefer offers plans outside of that range, but it appeals to you for some reason, again, go for it.
Sometimes you just have to go with your gut.
After narrowing down options based on price, we often look to eliminate companies with an AM Best financial rating lower than A-. AM Best provides independent ratings of insurance companies' financial strength, and while the difference between an A- and an A+ rated company is not generally something that we consider significant, we believe it's worth eliminating any company below an A-. There are plenty of A- or higher rated options, so why take the risk? However, as an added note, for those of you concerned with a Medigap company going bankrupt, not only is that incredibly rare, but if it does happen to you, you would get guaranteed issue rights to choose a new Medigap plan without medical underwriting. Next, consider companies that have been in the Medigap market for at least a few years. This is where working with a broker is really valuable. We can help you identify if an insurance company is new to the Medigap market or has been around long enough to establish credibility and, more importantly, stability. It is not uncommon for even large insurance companies to enter the Medigap market for a short period of time by outsourcing the plan's administration to a third-party administrator, only to stop offering the plans after a couple of years, which is why we tend to avoid those types of companies when possible. Just know that you are not going to find any of this information about how long a plan has been in the market using Medicare.gov. Another factor to look at is enrollment size and rate increases over the past few years. Again, this is information that your broker can help you with, as it is not something you will easily find online. While it's tempting to try to go find rate increase history for many years in the past, we recommend focusing instead on just the past few years to avoid overwhelming yourself with too much information that is ultimately not very helpful. Remember, although we take rate increases into consideration, past increases, they don't necessarily indicate future performance. For example, if we look at this company's rate increase history on the screen, if you had come to us in 2023 asking about their rate increase history, you would have seen that it was basically excellent going back to 2020. However, in 2024, this same exact company filed a 12% increase to their Medigap Plan G. Although this is not an abnormal increase for 2024, it does illustrate that past rate increase trends, they rarely tend to continue for too long. Mostly, we use recent premium increase information to avoid companies with a clear increasing trend in their monthly premiums. For enrollment size, on the other hand, you'll generally want to avoid companies with very small enrollment numbers, say in the double digits for your state. Insurance is all about spreading out risk amongst plan members, and using the law of large numbers, so a company with a small pool of enrollment might face more premium instability over time. That said, even large Medigap insurance companies can have smaller enrollment numbers in newer blocks of business, so the key is to look for any alarmingly low enrollment figures lasting more than a couple of years. If we look at the same company whose premium increases we showed you earlier, you'll see that their enrollment numbers for Plan G after 4 years on the market still haven't even reached triple digits. Finally, consider customer service as a tiebreaker, but don't make it a deal breaker. Online reviews are often overwhelmingly negative, especially for insurance companies, and they don't paint the full picture. Many issues they stem from providers miscoding services and not problems with the Medigap plan. Or people might have issues with their Medicare Advantage or their under 65 insurance and they'll leave a review and it all gets lumped under the same company, even though it has nothing to do with the Medigap plan. Remember, your broker acts as your liaison and often provides better service than the company directly. That said, if you have personally experienced bad customer service with a specific company, it is perfectly reasonable to take that into account and go with another company if it makes financial sense. To bring everything that we have discussed into focus, let's go through 2 real-world examples. We'll look at different scenarios based on specific zip codes to see how the practices that we've covered play out in real life. To do this, a random number generator gave me a zip code 77334, which happens to be Dodge, Texas. So hello to anybody watching from there. Using this zip code, we will look at a 65-year-old male living in the 77334 zip code, considering Plan G. It is important to note that Texas does not offer birthday rules, anniversary rules, or other unique guaranteed issue rights that will allow him to change to a new Medigap plan in the future without going through medical underwriting. This makes his initial choice even more critical. Also, just know that a majority of the plans are attained age-rated. When running a quote in this area, one of the first things you might notice compared to the quoting tool we use as brokers is that Medicare.gov, they might exclude some legitimate options like Bankers Fidelity and Allstate Medigap plans. This is a great example of why using a broker can be so valuable. We can access a broader range of plans and provide insights that might not be immediately visible on Medicare.gov. For this scenario, we would generally consider companies within the range that includes Farm Bureau up to Humana Achieve. This sticks to our roughly $10 to $15 per month range, and it avoids plans below an A- financial rating like LifeShield National and American Home Life. One plan to consider is Physicians Mutual, which offers an innovative Plan G in this case. Now this plan, it is different. It is a high-deductible Plan G that automatically converts to a traditional Plan G after a set amount of time. It also includes some unique benefits such as fitness coverage and extra preventive services. While it is a solid option, it's important to recognize that this is not the same as the other Plan Gs on the list. In this particular case, we would generally recommend looking more closely at the options from Bankers Fidelity, Physicians Mutual, Allstate, and Humana using the criteria we discussed earlier. For full transparency, I should mention that we do not contract with and we do not sell Farm Bureau or State Farm, so while we won't recommend those plans, you are certainly welcome to contact them directly if that is something you're interested in. Now let's move to our final example, a 68-year-old female living in the 92123 zip code in San Diego, California. In this case, she's considering a Plan N. In this scenario, it is a bit more straightforward because California has a birthday rule. This rule allows Medigap members to change to a new Medigap plan with equal or lesser benefits during a 60-day period surrounding their birthday each year. This means that choosing a plan letter here is truly more important than choosing a specific Medigap insurance company. Given this rule, when running a quote for Plan N in San Diego, you're really just looking for a plan with a low monthly premium in the short term. Since we don't offer Farm Bureau, again, in this case, we would recommend Cigna or Humana, which are very similar in price. Then, near your next birthday, you can reassess and potentially switch to another Plan N if it makes sense. The key here is to not overthink it, use the birthday rule to your advantage, and adjust as needed each year. These examples, they illustrate how varied the Medigap landscape can be depending on your location and circumstances. If you're looking for even more detailed insights into the behind-the-scenes business practices of Medigap plans, I highly recommend you check out our video on the screen to show you how to use the SURF filing system, where we deep dive into how these insurance companies actually operate.